doesn't take BS from anybody. And he's always looking out for you. He's Isiah. And this is The Factor, Uncensored.
Well, guys, it's another Friday night. We're here live at the Union Kitchen in Bel Air, and it's time for the Isiah Factor Uncensored. We have some great topics, great guests sitting in the wings: Jolanda Jones, Adrian Garcia, Willie D, Jared Woodfield, a long list of great topics, so thank you for joining us tonight. But first, before we get started, let's get the hot topics with AC Angela Chen. Angela?
We've got hot topics, hot food, everything is hot here. Although our first one, literally on fire. Not a happy story, but it does have a happy ending for some. An intense and deadly blaze blasted through a Pasadena apartment complex this morning. Take a look at this video. One man was killed and 4 others had to jump to safety. Firefighters say as flames raced through the complex on Burke Road near Pasadena Boulevard, a mother dropped her baby from the 2nd floor into the waiting arms of police officers. Then the mother herself jumped down into the officers' arms. Of course, the officer is now being hailed as a hero for being cool-headed. Here's what that officer had to say.
I gave her instructions to lean out as far as she could without cutting herself anymore, and to just drop the baby down to me. And I caught the baby safely.
2 other people were taken to the hospital for smoke inhalation, and we don't know yet what the cause of the fire is. Okay, over in KLEIN ISD, they've released surveillance video from inside a school bus after a driver goes through railroad tracks moments before a train crosses the intersection. The incident happened last week, and the driver was taking Glen Oak High School students home when the driver decided to just cross the tracks as a train approached. In the video, the driver's heard saying, "Well, I guess we'll just sit here," moments after crossing the tracks as a train passes just feet from the school bus. Surprisingly, but not surprisingly, the district fired the driver. Okay, tonight the story might bring you a sense of justice. Remember that Katy man who was beat up, knocked out simply because he was black? Well, this might bring you a sense of justice to hear that he was awarded $3.8 million from his civil lawsuit. Now, 79-year-old Roy Coleman has won his civil lawsuit against Conrad Barrett. The 29-year-old was sent to federal prison for nearly 6 years last year after entering a guilty plea in the case. Prosecutors say Barrett searched for someone who was black to knock out and targeted the senior citizen while taping it. Okay, this next story teaches us probably better not to go knocking or inside strange men's houses. A dope has been arrested for selling dope of the marijuana variety, not the hardcore stuff. But even so, Precinct 4 in Montgomery County has gotten several complaints from parents that high schoolers have been going to this man's house to buy pot. This is Durrell Eubanks. He's 62 years old and was caught selling it to CIs and undercover investigators. When police searched his home, they also found 2 stolen weapons and about 3 ounces of weed. And speaking of teenagers, a judge has ruled that the probation case of affluenza teen Ethan Couch will be moved to adult court. Couch appeared in court this morning. He was given probation for killing 4 people while driving drunk after his attorney argued that he suffered from affluenza. Couch and his mom took off to Mexico after he allegedly put his probation at risk when he was caught on video at a party. Today's ruling raises the possibility that he could face up to 120 days in jail and then go back on probation. Okay, we're going to the national stuff. The Justice Department was taking a bite out of Apple, and it is a bitter taste. Federal prosecutors are demanding that a judge immediately order Apple to give them the tools to get inside the iPhone used by Saeed Farouk, one of the attackers in the San Bernardino terrorist massacre. Apple has so far refused, saying this is a chilling attack on privacy and that this could be a slippery slope to hack into other users' phones. And finally, tonight we remember Harper Lee, the beloved author who wrote the book every high school kid probably had to read, To Kill a Mockingbird, a story of justice and race in a small southern town. Now, Lee was 89 years old, and her family says that she died in Monroeville, Alabama, in her sleep this morning. So this is to Ms. Harper Lee. Thank you for leaving America. Such a wonderful classic. Okay, those are your hot topics. It's Friday night. As always, here to help you cool off is your AC. I'm Angela Chen. Let's send it back to you, Isiah.
All right, thanks a lot, Angela, and save me some of that food in there. Now we're going to take a look at some of the hot topics that we will be discussing right here on The Factor Uncensored tonight. Take a look.
Yeah. Better have my money. You better find the money, broke ass. That's what the federal government would say if it was uncensored. The feds have hired private attorneys to squeeze that change out of your empty pockets if you have defaulted on those federally backed student loans. One man didn't show up for court for his 29-year-old outstanding student loan, and those U.S. Marshals showed up and took him for a little ride. Paul Aker has since hired the Johnny Cochran law firm. Donald Trump has straight up lost his mind. You do not play with the Pope. That's like playing with the mafia. You'll wake up with a burning rosary in your bed. By now, you know the Pope had some strong words for the Donald, and Trump actually fired back. But then he realized he could land on the fast track to hell. We'll talk with our political pundits about this issue. Willie D of the Ghetto Boys, and he came out swinging and pimp-slapped Senator Ted Cruz on national news.
Damn, it feels good to be a Clinton.
That's after Willie D says Ted Cruz used his song "It's Good to Be a Gangsta" in a political ad. We'll talk to Willie D and Jared Woodfield and see who gets slapped tonight.
And we're starting off with the most popular topic here in Houston this week, and it's about defaulted student loans and how the U.S. Marshals are being told to go and arrest individuals who don't show up for court for those loans. Joining me now is former Harris County Sheriff, former Houston City Councilman, former police officer, and now running for Congress, Adrian Garcia. Want to thank you for coming on the Isiah Factor Uncensored. Also joining us is Jolanda Jones, who is a current school board member, former Houston City Council, and attorney at law. Now, when you guys heard this story about these individuals who have been arrested by the U.S. Marshals for not coming to court related to their defaulted student loans, what did you think about that, Jolanda?
I thought governmental overreach. You want me to talk more?
I want some more from you.
Okay, we got rid of debtors' prisons a long time ago. You do not go to jail for not being able to pay something. What you do is somebody sues you, you show up for court and you fight it, or if you don't show up, you get a default judgment. People have a judgment, they go execute against the judgment, they put it on your credit, or they take your money, or they put a lien on stuff and they take stuff, but they don't put you in jail for that. Prison is for criminals. So, and it's unfair, and they have lost their mind.
Now, Adrian, you have done some research on this. You have actually talked to the U.S. Marshal here in the Houston area, Gary Blankenship. What is your understanding of this situation?
Well, look, first of all, the U.S. Marshal would love to be out there chasing really, really dangerous fugitives and other people and get them off the streets, not being involved in private debt collection. You know, the first thing that came to my attention or came to my mind, Isiah, is that here, the federal agency that was once called to help break segregation is now being used against education. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And so...
we agree with each other.
Yes, of course, of course.
Governmental overreach.
That's right, that's right. It should be, the federal agency shouldn't be that way. Shouldn't be using federal courts for private debt collection, and we shouldn't be involving the U.S. Marshal Service, a federal law enforcement agency, to be in the middle of this.
Now, let's set this up on how we ever got to this place, and that's private attorneys who were hired by the federal government to collect outstanding student loans, and they took those cases into federal court in Judge Lynn Hughes' courtroom. And then he has ordered individuals before him, and when they haven't shown up, like in this particular case, he had them arrested.
You have a right to not show up in court. You get served, you get something that says you have, X number of days to file a response. If you do not, a default judgment may be entered against you. That's what that says. So what that means is you can show up and you can fight it, or there can be a judgment entered against you where most times you'll get whatever you ask for. And what you do, you hear debt collectors calling people all the time, and they put it on your credit and they make you not be able to get loans and stuff. That is how you deal with people who don't pay bills. You do not lock them up. It's absurd.
Now, if you were elected to Congress, would you look at this situation between private attorneys that the federal government has hired and look at that whole situation on how it works out?
You know, with student loans being the middle of this particular conversation, without a doubt. I mean, it is, we want, in the 29th district, it is the third worst performing congressional district in America on educational attainment. So I want kids to go to universities, but I don't want them to be, being arrested because they're struggling to pay their bills. President Obama wants to make community college free. I support that. you know, we ought to be talking more about how to make college education affordable or free.
But I'll also say this, after deregulation of public school education, the Texas legislature has lost its mind. And the cost of college has gone up exponentially.
That's right.
And I suspect that people are having problems paying back college debt because they are out of control. Kids are being over $100,000 worth of debt. So, dude, I wonder what they're going to do to somebody. I mean, they say this guy was behind, what, $1,500?
Yeah.
After 29 years? Even in criminal cases, there are statutes of limitations, right? So what happened to the statute of limitations? They should have gone after the money back 10 years, 20 years ago or whatever. It's obnoxious, it's absurdity, and I'd be curious to see under what law or whatever Judge Hughes did that, because it's crazy.
You know, we say that education is the key to many solutions. But here you are, you having people struggle. We want people to be lifted up out of their circumstances. Education is the pathway for that. But then when you can't pay for that education because
we're going to have to continue this subject after we just ran out of time.
Yeah.
Jolanda Jones,
Okay,
Adrian
cool.
Garcia, thank you guys for coming on the Isiah
Thanks for
Fact. We'll
having
be
me.
back after this. And welcome back to the Isiah Factor Uncensored. We're live here at the Union Kitchen in Bel Air, where we're having a good time, and we're talking politics with Margaret Justice and Kathleen McKinley. Now, it has been a big week in politics, and of course, who's always up first? Donald Trump. Now, how do you get into an argument with the Pope? That's ridiculous.
How does that happen? Well, it happens when a reporter with an agenda asks a question.
Well, sometimes that happens.
Leading
So
question. And a leading question. No one seems, they read the answer, but they don't read the question. And the question was like, what do you think about this Donald Trump running for a Republican who is tearing families apart and building walls? That's how he asked the question, okay?
Those are his intentions, right?
Oh, yes. But what the Pope said was that, you know, you should never build walls, you should always build bridges. But that was metaphorically. He was speaking, as a Christian, you should always open your heart to people. That is what he meant. And he said...
Well, if Trump is doing the opposite of what he feels a Christian should do, then that's a message for Trump.
Well, it could be a message for Trump, but not in that he was speaking about a actual wall. That he was only speaking about like that.
That's right. I just think, what would Jesus do? And I think that's what the Pope was asking Donald Trump, or at least Donald Trump's considering that. And I think Donald Trump's reaction to say that the Pope is a disgrace. Yes, that was his reaction. It's like the Pope is disgraceful for saying.
Oh, I did not see that.
Is this a man with no limits and out of control?
IG can just say anything and it just keeps getting printed, and anything, the more outrageous, the more it gets printed, the less it gets questioned.
And I gave him 48 hours of news time right before the South Carolina primary, which has very few Catholics.
Which is
so it absolutely helped him, if anything else.
Cruz is gaining on in South Carolina. It's getting a little tighter now there, so we'll see what happens.
Well, let's talk about South Carolina. That's going to be a big day tomorrow.
Yeah.
So what do we expect in South Carolina when it comes to the Republicans, Margaret?
Well, I think if I were Jeb Bush, I'd be hoping to God that I could get my numbers up, because by the end of the week, if they don't look good, I don't know how he's going to make it through this race. I think he's counting on it. He had his brother down there campaigning for him. I don't know if those numbers are going to move for him. I feel kind of bad for Mr. Bush. But in the meantime, we've got Ted Cruz and Trump getting very close, and I think it'll be a good contest. We'll see what happens tomorrow. It's real important. South Carolina is going to set a huge precedent for all these states, including Super Tuesday, including Texas.
What are your predictions in South Carolina?
Sadly, Trump will win, and I think Ted Cruz will come in second. I think Rubio third, but I also think that if Cruz can come close to him, that'll be a big victory for Cruz as far as the delegates that he gets. It's going to come down to Rubio, to me. It's going to come down to Rubio or Cruz deciding who's going to back each other. It's got to be one or the other if they're going to beat Trump. Otherwise, it's Trump.
Now, with Hillary and Bernie, let's talk about these super delegates. Is it already over for Bernie in reality?
Well, don't know. I think you can't say that. It's gonna, there'll be some wins for Bernie between now and then, but it's not completely over. But what's interesting to think about is what happened this whole week when it came to last Saturday, when Justice Scalia passed away in West Texas, of all things. It was just incredible. Think about what that means for the Supreme Court. First of all, we had, Republican after Republican pile on saying, oh no, the president has no right to nominate anybody because he's a lame duck. Well, the guy has a whole almost 11 months left. That's ludicrous. It's the president's job to nominate a Supreme Court justice. It's the Senate's job to confirm somebody. And Ted Cruz coming back and saying, 80 years we haven't seen a Supreme Court justice nominated in an election year. That's absurd. He forgot about Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan nominated Justice Kennedy, and he passed it. They got it done.
Out of time, ladies. I want to thank you guys for coming on the Isiah Factor Uncensored. Hope to see you back next week, depending on how I behave here tonight. We'll be back with more Isiah Factor Uncensored after this. Stay with us. And welcome back to the Isiah Factor Uncensored. We're live here at Union Kitchen in Bel Air, and it's now time to get outside the box with Angela Box. So, Angela, what are you talking about today?
Oh, I've been ranting about this all week. It's about, of course, the death of Justice Scalia and how this has left just a gaping hole in the conservative movement and, of course, the Supreme Court. And President Obama has already promised to fill the vacancy with another left-wing liberal. And as we know from history, this man will actually do what he says, unlike the Republican Party, the modern-day Republican Party, I should say. So 24 hours out, they promised to stop any Obama nominee from coming to the floor of the Senate. But immediately they started quibbling and backtracking, and for fear of being called, racist by the Democrats and the media, which, no offense, but that's a little redundant. What I'm praying for.
If it's racism, you call it racism.
How is that racist?
But here's the deal. He is the president, and under the Constitution, he's given the opportunity to pick the next Supreme Court justice.
Let me explain something to you. For the last 80 years, no lame duck president has ever appointed a Supreme Court nominee. And I might add, Charles Schumer said...
But they're given that right under the Constitution.
The Senate has...
It would be just a convenience for the Republican Party to say, don't pick a nominee until after you're out of the office.
Okay, well, guess what? Charles Schumer said that
But they're hopeful that they may win the presidency.
If we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. But the next president should appoint the next nominee. Look, the Republicans have been so scared of their shadows for 15 years or 20 years or 30 years. These people are the most feckless, weak group of idiots I've ever seen. And unless they really start playing smart and playing tough, the Democrats are going to continue to walk all over them. We're going to lose this election, and we're going to continue on the path of the destruction of this country.
But if you paint a picture of them being obstructionists by blocking the president from doing his constitutional duties, then that's exactly what they are.
I've been wanting to say this, but you keep cutting me off, and I love you, but here's the deal. Chuck Schumer, 18 months out of Bush's last term, said, no, we're going to filibuster every Bush appointee should there be a vacancy. Barack Obama filibustered Justice Alito, and he proudly did it along with John Kerry, that Frankenstein face. Proudly did it. So for Barack Obama and the Democrats to say, oh, this is racist, this is this is that, Obama should get whatever he wants. Obama has got whatever he has wanted for the last 7 years. It's about time the Republican Party stood up and had a spine and fought back against this man.
That's all the time we have, Angela Box. You just getting heated up, huh? Calm down.
Go, girl.
Call the fire department. We'll be back with more Isiah Factor. Feeling good about yourself, huh? We'll be back.
All right, of course, last week we talked about the fact that nobody sits around and watches TV on news very much, at least not everybody. We got to be on the move. It's too quick. We showed our weather on the web, went to fox26houston.com and showed you how you can get your weather forecast. And today I'm going to be forecasting from the weather app. And there's a news app, but I'm going to be using the weather app. Let's take a look. First of all, it's important to note that you can function in both the profile and the landscape form. I prefer the landscape because I'm using the iPad, but when you use the mobile app for cell phones, the advertisements disappear if you'll switch to the landscape. So that's a little something that I didn't tell you about for sure. I want to click on or go ahead and tap where it says daily, and that'll kind of bring up a much more detailed look at the forecast that you're wanting to look through. First of all, note the rest of the weekend looking fantastic, but when we go to Monday, that's when things get a little bit interesting as far as our local forecasts go. 50% chance of showers across the area. Those are primarily going to be in the daytime and into the afternoon and then into the evening hours on Monday. So it's Monday afternoon into Monday night, maybe even a little bit. Notice the 20% chance of rain on Tuesday. That's going to be primarily just in the morning, though. And of course, lots of other features. You can look at all the details as far as the hourly times, and that's going to start with the days, not when you're moving forward. And then one other feature that I really like, and this is not going to show up too much right now because you don't have rain chances, but you can sort of slide this graph a little bit back and forth, and that's going to show you forecasted temperatures as well as the forecasted precipitation or your best chances of rain. So that's always kind of a neat feature. Now, of course, what makes everybody happy is, of course, because Isiah and I, we don't always agree on the makers of our portable devices. He's sort of a different breed than I am as far as that's concerned. But the good news is that our weather app, of course, will work with both Android and Apple devices. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks a lot, John. Now, I only work with a Samsung. I know you have that Apple device. But now it's time for fun and games with DK and Lauren Kelly from Mix 96.5. Glad to have you guys here.
Good to see you.
Thank you. A lot of great topics this evening.
Sure do. I have to start with something that I saw all over my Facebook newsfeed first, though.
Go ahead.
And it was very disturbing. It was a story about people taking selfies with this baby dolphin.
Oh, that was horrible.
And it was out of the water long enough to where it actually got dehydrated and it died.
Yeah.
And the story was basically a group of ongoers saw the dolphin out of the water. They don't know why it was out of the water to begin with, but they tossed it around enough that it got dehydrated and actually died. And it was wildlife and it was an endangered species. And it's just, my heart breaks when I see this story.
It's a horrible story. You know, everyone at that Argentina beach needs an ass whooping.
I agree.
They really do.
I wasn't going to say it, but they
horrible.
do.
It was
It's
endangered
horrible.
species.
And when it was dead, they
dolphin.
still passed it around.
Yeah.
No. Maybe this will bring awareness so that they don't do it again.
You gotta hope
We can
so.
only hope so.
Well,
Okay.
let's get upbeat now.
Well,
Yeah.
let's get up to well, let's go to Beyonce. And so her tour kicks off in Miami in April. So now the Fraternal Order of Police Miami have tried to boycott this entire Formation World Tour. Now you want to know why? They say the reason is she used this year's Super Bowl to divide Americans by promoting the Black Panthers and her anti-police message. So this lieutenant in Miami is kind of getting all of his chapter and other police officer friends
That's
to
a waste of
boycott.
time.
Boycott security
Even
for
the Houston
Beyonce.
Police Department or the union representing the Houston Police Department said this is not a real issue. They need to find something to do with their time. This is
Exactly.
ridiculous that they would put so much energy into this.
Exactly.
Do you think it's possible that they could boycott and not support
I'm
her
sure
show?
they
Because
would,
need
but you
police
know
presence at
how
those
some
shows.
people can be.
There are
It's
so
silly.
many people. This show is going to be huge in May, so let's hope we do get the security that it needs to be at the Beyonce
I think
show.
it'll get resolved. but-
What's next?
We're going to talk a little bit about Rihanna. She's had a bit of a rough week. First, she missed her Grammy performance at the last second. She did rehearsals, which was interesting because she rehearsed twice, like hours before the show was supposed to start, and then said, I can't perform. Her doctor's orders, basically. She had been battling with bronchitis, and they said, if you perform tonight, you could damage your vocal cords.
Do you
So,
guys really believe some of those entertainment excuses?
I don't know.
Dehydration. She may have drank too much the night before.
It could be a little rehab.
She had a doctor's note.
A doctor's
She
note.
probably
Yeah,
did
her
it
mom,
for
her
it.
friend wrote it. Jay-Z wrote it for her.
Right.
Right, but along
Dr.
with that,
Dre signed it.
Exactly, Dr. Dre.
that started off her week bad. She just had to postpone her anti-world tour with one of the dates here in Houston. So the first 8 shows
Right.
have been moved to May because the set basically wasn't ready. All the production wasn't done. So she's had 2 things that she's canceled, 2 big things that she's had to cancel this week. I'm sure the fans are upset, but those tickets for the show here in Houston, they're going to be good at that same show in May. So if you have
hold
your
on to your
tickets,
ticket.
you're going to be fine.
Let's keep Rihanna in our prayers tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, poor Rihanna.
We'll take a
I hope for. Yeah, hopefully she doesn't have bronchitis when she comes to Houston. Now, have you guys heard about, well,
Who hasn't heard Kanye's rants this week?
Oh my goodness.
Of his
What's going
many
on with that
rants,
guy? What's going
he
on with that
started
guy?
out the week talking about how broke he was. He's $53 million in debt, according to him. Now,
I don't believe it.
there's
I don't
different
believe
types
it.
of debts.
No.
He
I
has
think
all
this
of his
has
money
to be
invested.
some kind of prank or some kind of game
He's
or
got an
mind
album
game
coming
he's
out.
trying to play with us.
I totally agree. I mean, he's worth reportedly $100 million. Kim Kardashian reportedly worth another $50 million. So combined, worth over $150 million. He's obviously invested into his clothing line, which has been giving him a lot of trouble because all that money is tied up. So he went on a Twitter rant. People got upset because you can't go on Twitter as a $100 millionaire saying you're broke and asking Mark Zuckerberg for money.
GoFundMe or something?
Yes, and a fan did. Well, not a fan. Someone started it as kind of a joke, but now there's $6,700 raised. The guy said he's actually going to give it to Kanye because he said that's why he started it as a joke. Now he's going to give Kanye
And
West
how much did he raise so far?
$6,700 as of this afternoon. So it'll get even bigger, which is just embarrassing. And then he obviously finished the week off with his rant on SNL. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but he was caught backstage minutes before the show was going to start. He threatened to cancel because he was upset about the set being changed before his performance. So someone had him recorded, and he went off about how important he is. He's 50% more influential than Stanley Kubrick, than the Apostle Paul, than Picasso.
Oh my
And then he
goodness.
started slamming Taylor Swift, and it was just, he looked like a prima donna, and it's
Let's
getting
move
old.
on from Kanye West. What's
Yeah,
next
no,
on
talk
the list?
to that fan. Speaking of ridiculous, Justin Bieber's in the news, and it's because he wants to adopt a monkey again.
Oh my
This
God.
happened before in 2013. He took the monkey illegally out of the country to Germany, was seen partying with this monkey, and it got basically deported back to its home country because it didn't have a proper visa. So there's all these animal activists and rights people saying, Justin, please don't do this. It's in your best interest to just get a dog or a cat or a hamster or a goldfish that you don't need to do much to take care of.
I think
A
we all
chia
feel
pet.
that.
Yeah,
A chia pet. Something that's not alive that he can harm.
He doesn't need any more responsibility.
No, he doesn't.
I don't know. Did you guys see Adele on Ellen this week?
Oh, that's
The greatest
hilarious.
video.
Let's play a
Hashtag
small
Adele.
clip real quick. Here's a clip from Ellen and Adele, and they played a prank.
In your purse, there's scissors. I would like, and just start chopping some. Can I chop some off? Thank you. All right, put it in your mouth. That's right. Put it in your mouth and chew on it.
That is hilarious.
That was my
and I love the
favorite part.
line at the end where she said, "I'm a celebrity. Do I have to pay?"
Right. They were going to give it to her for free. They were like, we'll check with our manager. But I love that she just took the wheatgrass and just started chewing on it. She held a straight face the whole time.
Yeah.
And she might have a future in acting and comedy as well because she nailed it.
You know, she had such a tough weekend at the
did.
I think it was Monday.
Yeah,
The
Monday
Grammys
night.
aired, and she had such a tough weekend. So this lightened up the mood for her and made people kind of forget about the mishap.
snafu.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
the first thing she did after the Grammys,
What's that?
she got a cheeseburger from In-N-Out and grabbed a beer.
Do it.
That's
Do
the way
it.
to do it.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Want to appreciate you. Catch you guys on Mix 96.5. We'll be back with more of the Isiah Factor Uncensored after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Isiah Factor Uncensored. Joining us now is a very special guest, Rob Thomas from the Union Kitchen. Thank you for allowing us to do the show here at your restaurant for the last 3 weeks.
We appreciate it a ton. It's always fun having you out. Anytime, anybody can come in and join.
Now, what do you have going on here at the restaurant next week?
Well, next week at Paul's Kitchen location, we're going to be having a beer dinner with St. Arnold. If you haven't heard about these yet, it is something that we have going on. As you know from last week, we did a bourbon and beer. It's going to be a 5-course pairing. I have St. Arnold coming in. I have the owner, Brock Wagner, Ryan Chavoy, and Paul Lewis also got together and did a crafted menu all around the beer.
What I love the best, Rob, are the free giveaways. You give away big baskets of stuff to your guests who show up. Now, will you be doing the same thing next week, or?
Yes, in between each coursing, we do a raffle off, no charge, or it's just the admission price of coming into this. We get you a ticket, has all types of goodies from the Union Kitchen. It has our Jack's Grills location stuff in there, and it also has all types of cool stuff coming from St. Arnold also.
Now, the last one I was at, I thought the food would never stop coming. It was course after course after course, and drink after drink. Not that I had any of the drinks. I think you had most of the drinks, right?
No, never. Not that one. That's the rough part about this job, is
Right.
setting all of these up. We do put a lot into that. We build around the beer or around the bourbon in that case. And the menu, we have malts where the runoff from the actual mill that we're using to put into the meat. We're putting the beer in with all of the dishes that is going to be prepared and paired together with
And real quick, when will this be, Rob?
This is going to be
10
February
seconds.
23rd and at 6:30 at my Paul's Kitchen location at 59 in Kirby.
All right, thank you, sir. We'll be back with more Isiah Factor Uncensored. After this, we have Willie D and Jared Woodfield coming your way. Stay with us.
Good Friday night, everybody. I'm Chris Stipes. We'll get you back out to Isiah momentarily, but first, the Astros are warming up for the new season in sunny Florida. Our sports director, Mark Berman, continues our coverage of Astros spring training from the Sunshine State.
Carlos Correa left the Astros spring training complex Friday, patiently signing for fans after an afternoon spent in front of the cameras with teammate Carlos Gomez during a photo shoot for Adidas. Fox 26 Sports reported first last week that Correa signed a 5-year contract with Adidas that has since become a national story. And he taped his first commercials in the U.S. for Central Houston Auto Group. The foundation for all of this was Correa's great play in 2015 en route to being named American League Rookie of the Year. And he's only 21.
Age is just a number. It tells you how long you've been living and not how much you live. So the way I was raised, I think, helped me a lot. And the way my dad raised me, I think it was key for me to be like this nowadays.
Astros manager A.J. Hinch says a key to Correa's mindset is that he doesn't need compliments, doesn't need to be told he's great.
I have a lot of confidence, like he said, and my mind is bulletproof, man. Nobody can tell me that I'm not gonna get better. Nobody can tell me that I'm not gonna do this or do that. I'm gonna go out there and try to perform and do what's best for the team.
And perhaps what's also best for Major League Baseball. The game can see Carlos as the next Mike Trout or Bryce Harper.
That's the way I wanted to look at me, and the thing I bring to the table is that I'm bilingual. I can speak Spanish, I can speak English, and that's gonna help me a lot throughout my career. So hopefully I can do a lot of great things for the sport of baseball, and I can not only help here in the States but the Latin community as well.
And all of Carlos' success comes back to the way he was raised by his father.
It was tough growing up, and he wanted me to be perfect every single time I was on the field. So when you have your dad being that tough with you and trying for you to be perfect, and then you come here and people you go 1 for 4 with a home run and the media's all over you, and you go home and your dad's like, you had a terrible game. What happened with the other 3 at-bats? What the media says, it doesn't affect you as much as when your dad is telling you, because he's the one watching you play and he's the one you're trying to make proud every single day.
And Carlos expects big things from the Astros in 2016.
I think we had the team to win it all.
Covering Carlos Correa and the Astros in Kissimmee, Mark Berman, Fox 26 Sports.
Let's hope so. The self-proclaimed broken Rockets, meanwhile, back in action tonight. Dwight Howard included, the big fella not traded before the deadline after all. And so the second half playoff push is underway in Phoenix. Rockets losers of 3 straight and 6 of their last 8. But maybe the 9-day All-Star break did the trick. Here's Dwight getting the feed from James. Hopefully he can remain healthy the rest of the way. Misses the oop, but gets the job done with the dunk anyway. He had 13 points in the first half. James Harden got off to a slow start shooting. Hit just 2 of 7 shots in the first half. There was one of them. Listen, the Suns have lost 24 of their last 26 games, one of the worst teams in the NBA. But the Rockets pulled away just before halftime. Right now, Rockets are leading 56-45 at halftime. And that's a look at sports for this Friday night. Let's send it back to the incomparable and uncensored Isiah Carey.
Chris, I knew you'd find a way to bulldoze your way into my show tonight. But thank you for the sports. We appreciate it. Now we're talking about Ted Cruz and his new political ad where he used a song from the Ghetto Boys and Willie D, your group, It's Good to Be a Gangster, but he's now calling it It's Good to Be a Clinton.
Well,
And
damn,
so,
it feels good to be a Clinton.
yes.
Yeah.
And we have Jared Woodfield with us, who is a Harris County Republican, also a local attorney, and Willie D of the Ghetto Boys. First of all, your feelings on having Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, use your song in his political ad against the Clintons.
Well, first and foremost, I would be remiss to not to give this man congratulations for his successful bid at knocking down that Proposition 1. That's first and foremost. That's first and foremost. Campaign for Houston, man, I really appreciate that because we do not need men in our public bathrooms threatening our women.
Amen.
First and foremost. On the other end,
here it comes.
Your guy, Ted Cruz, I just feel like this dude is human waste.
Human waste?
Yeah, he's human waste.
Human waste.
It's been 2 days, and I still feel the same way. I feel like that this dude is a self-aggrandizing, insufferable douchebag, and he should not have used our music without our permission.
Douchebag.
Yeah.
You, Jared Woodfield.
I think he's a,
Not that
I'm
you're
not
a
the
douchebag. No.
Well, I do believe he's a human who wants to waste the Democrats, specifically in this case Hillary Clinton. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, if I was, will I be flattered? I mean, the fact that he appreciated his music so much, what he did, that he's willing to put in an ad. And there's a whole new generation of folks that are now hearing it. For instance, I'm now familiar with it and wouldn't have been as familiar with it but for this ad. So I would consider it a form of flattery that he felt that this song was significant enough that it deserved national attention. And it's getting a national audience.
Let me ask you this, Jared. If somebody mugged you and put it on social media and you complained about it, would you feel disrespected if that person told you, you know what, I don't know why the hell you whining, at least everybody knows who you are now.
Well, it's like this. You talked about Campaign for Houston. There's a whole lot of people that said some very bad things about us nationally when we won Campaign for Houston, but I was proud that they were talking about what we had done. And so I didn't appreciate the context that they were using it, but they were actually talking about our victory. And your music is significant, and it's getting significant national attention because of this ad, and I think he meant it as a form of flattery to you.
Out of time. Thank you, guys. I know you was about to come back, but
and he would have had a good one, I'm sure.
That's it for the Factor. So we'll be back with more after this. Stay with us. Thank you, guys, for coming on.
Oh, yeah.
It's that time for crazy-ass criminals on The Factor. Let's start with Christopher Durkin, who was either high or just dumb as hell. Investigators say this guy was already in court for driving without a license. But while in traffic court, deputies say this fool tried to sell drugs to someone else in the same court. Deputies promptly marched his happy ass back into court and charged him with intent to deliver and possession of a controlled substance. Good looking out, Chris. Allegedly. You can see that crazy-ass criminal look in Carolyn Wright's eyes. The cops say she needed to pick up a few personal items at the Walmart via the old five-finger discount. Now, according to the cops, Carolyn was seen stealing panties, lube, and condoms. Now, I wonder what this wholesome all-American girl was going to do with all that lube and stuff. Two Walmart employees reportedly tried to stop her from leaving the store, and investigators say she punched one in the head, boop, and bit off part of the finger of another employee. Carolyn, you're one crazy-ass criminal. Next up, Timothy Ortiz is in a lot of trouble. The cops say when he was fired from Burger King, this fool got so mad, he set his uniform on fire in the fast food joint. He reportedly got into an argument with his manager and customers who say they saw him flame broiling his uniform. I guess this crazy-ass criminal had it his way. And let's welcome Brooke Amber Sutton to the club. Police say she was shoplifting, stealing thousands of dollars in clothes. According to the investigators, she went into the dressing room and cut off all the security tags. She allegedly left those on the dressing room floor along with her cell phone and a small but discreet puddle of pee. I mean urine. Hey, if you gotta go, right, Amber? Allegedly, take your ass straight to jail. Those are the crazy-ass criminals.
Thank you guys for joining us on this edition of the Isiah Factor Uncensored, and thank you for joining us here live at Union Kitchen. Thank you guys. Give yourselves a round of applause. Round of applause. We will be back here next week with some interesting topics and guests, so make sure you tune back to Fox 26 when we will have another edition of the Isiah Factor Uncensored. And I want to thank the crew and staff out here too as well. You guys have a great night. We'll see you back here next Friday.
This newscast brought to you by Carpet Giant.